What's up everybody? Today's review is on the Bosch GCM 8 SJL miter saw, although we call them drop saws. Don't confuse this one with the GCM 8 SDE or the GCM 800 SJ. They're different drops. They're all different drop saws. Patreon, Instagram are in the description, and I want to give a shout out to Hillary Schofield for becoming the first Patreon. Thank you. And now I'll give you the specs on this. So it's 17.3 kilograms. I'd say it's closer to 18 when you add in the miter saw stand mounts. I do have a review on this miter saw stand. It's the GTA 2600. I'll put it in the description. 1600 watts of power, 5500 RPM, 7.2 amps. It's got a 216 millimeter blade. I believe that's the same as an 8¼ inch. It's got the 30 millimeter spindle. I forget what that's called, but that's 30 millimeter. It can do at 90 and 90, 70 by 312. When you turn it to 45 degree, when you miter it 45 degrees, it can only cut lengthwise to 14 millimeters, and when you bevel it to 45 degrees, you can only cut a depth of 48 millimeters. We have cut 70 by 70 pressure treated lumber with it. Lengthwise, yeah, I'd say 312 is about correct. So Bosch, I like Bosch. They're one of my favorite brands, along with DeWalt and Makita. This saw certainly has very good build quality. Like the finish, all the paint is still on there, except for the stuff that got cut off by mistake. Like all the diagrams are nicely printed on. This is not just a sticker, it's a nice piece of metal. And it's, I believe, no, those screws are for the depth. But I imagine you could buy a new one of these if you wanted. This is all metal, I believe. At least it feels like metal. This, of course, probably metal. Yeah, if it's cold, like metal. Rails are metal, and then this blue plastic would be PA6 nylon with at least 30% glass fiber reinforcement. Some of the other Bosch saws we have 35% glass fiber reinforcement, so it may very well be a 35%. And then this black overmolding on the handle would be SEBS. I like the feel of SEBS in my hand. It feels nice. And the thing about Bosch is that you can go to their website and say you want like some little thing like this piece right here. You can buy it and directly from Bosch, and they will ship it to you. So if something breaks after the 3-year warranty is up, because these come with a 1-year warranty and then a 3-year extension if you register within, I believe it's 4 weeks. But warranty, chances are if something's going to happen to the tool, that warranty will cover. It's going to happen in the first year anyway, and after that you're probably just going to have to fix it yourself. And even if warranty will cover it, sometimes you may very well have to pay for the shipping to ship it back to Bosch, but which may not be worth it. But with Bosch, you can, like, say you want this part or even just this screw, you can go to Bosch, order it directly from Bosch off Bosch's website, and they will ship it to you. I'm not sure how long the parts are available, but my dad has a 25-year-old impact driver from Bosch, and I was just looking at Bosch's website because I was curious the other day, and you could still buy all the parts for that impact driver. So chances are for a good and long time, you will be able to buy parts for any Bosch tool you buy. Power-wise, this saw has a tremendous amount of power. And we do a lot with this saw. We do lots of stuff we shouldn't do. Like, as long as the thing we want to cut is less than 60 centimeters wide, we'll cut it on this by pulling the saw right out, cutting, flipping it over, and doing that again. It does work because this is a square saw. And we do that a lot with 15mm plywood, and it does it no problem. Although it was starting to struggle a little bit with the heavier tasks when the blade got dull. There is a soft start on it. I'm not sure if that soft start is a selling feature. I kind of would prefer it just switch on immediately, but maybe it helps prolong the life of the motor. But overall, it's a very strong and very well built saw. And also, for what we do, we really don't need a 12-inch. I'm probably going to get a 12 or 10-inch at some point, but we have never come to a time when it hasn't been able to cut deep enough. There's never been a time where we put something on here, well, maybe once or twice, but I can't remember a time where we put something on here and it hasn't been deep enough. I can remember lots of times where it would have been nice if it had been able to cut 2 centimeters longer, but the depth of the 8 1/4 is fine. Personally, when it comes to a miter saw, what I care about is how long it can slide. And this miter saw has one of the longer cut capacities than a lot of the other saws. And even depth for 8 1/4 inch, this is a really good depth. It's between 70 and 75 centimeters, depending on how far back you cut. So you can go 50 degrees this way, 60 degrees this way. So I'm going to go over all the features. When you get this saw, it comes with a blade, the Bosch Upline for wood 48 tooth blade. We've had this saw for over 3 years now, and we changed out the factory blade for this new blade only a couple weeks ago. So these Bosch Upline for wood blades are good blades. You'll also get the clamp is pretty much a standard clamp. You'll get the miter saw, and you'll get a novel-sized instruction book with about 10 languages. So you have on the table, you have these extensions. When you don't have it on the stand, they're a bit stiff to slide back and forth, but a little bit of oil fixes that problem. Back here you have this extending fence. It's a good idea to extend it at least a little bit if you're going to be beveling or even mitering beyond 45 degrees. Once my dad was cutting at 60 degrees and he took the paint off the fence. So just pull it out before you go mitering more than 45 degrees. And also before you go beveling, you have to pull it out. So you have positive stops at, hold on. And this is not a sticker. This is a nice piece of metal with indented black lines. And that's metal as well. So you have 45, 31.6, 22.5, 15, 0, 15, 22.5, 31.6, 45, and 60. Those are your positive stops. You have to remove the clamp before you go. all the way to 60. And then you can just come back to 0. And underneath here you have this little foot, so that if you have it on a table rather than on the stand, you can screw this foot down and it doesn't, when you put something on the front, it doesn't tip forward. So this engages, and this is your positive stop, and it sits right at the exact place. And then if you want to, say you want to just do 30, there's no positive stop, so you have to tighten this, and I always tighten this anyway, just because. Your miter gauge, again, is nice engraved black lettering or numbers, and then this is your measure. You have over here 33.9, 22.5, and 45 degree positive stops. This is how you do your bevel. You just pull that forward. We're gonna only bevel to 22.5. We're at 22.5, and then you just push it back and it locks it. Want to come back to 0. It does stop. Sorry if this is a little wobbly. It stops exactly at 0. Push it forward and you're locked at 0. The dust collection is a 2-part dust collection, and I'd say about 90% of the dust, well, maybe only 80% of the dust when you're using it without a vacuum, does come out the end here. When you're using it with a vacuum, I'd say about 98% of the dust goes into the vacuum. So you have this port that's right behind the blade at all times, so even when you're all the way out here, it's still going up here. And then at the end of the track, you also have this second dust port. Then for your, if you want to do a precision depth, or want to only cut to a certain depth, this is your depth control. It's a nice screw, metal, spring, big knob, and then this is your, so that you can engage your depth control. So right now it's off, so I can go right down, but then if you flip it sideways, you stop at the depth you set. There's no measurement on it though, so you kind of have to guess or measure it from the blade. You get a nice big carrying handle back here. I personally find it's a little awkward to carry around with one hand, so I instead prefer to just grab it down here, but there is this big nice carrying handle. Your rail lock is this knob. It's a nice big knob. You just turn it and now your rails are locked. Loosen it and now you can slide. Speaking of the rails, they're nice smooth sliders. They are nice and stiff, and I like that they're stiff. They're not quite as stiff as they used to be because my dad waxed them the other day. But it's a nice smooth slider. Then your cord is a nice cord. It's not too thick. It's nice and flexible, and it's pretty decently long. That's a new word. And it comes with your tie. You do have a laser. Now the laser is kind of interesting. I think it's set to be 1 millimeter to the left of the blade. I don't really use the laser. I sometimes use it to line up the wood if I've got a long board, so I know roughly where I want to cut. But for precision cuts, it's not that great. It's precise, it's just not exactly where the blade is going to cut. And you do have a little screen back here. And then you have your spindle lock. And this is your motor. It's a nice big motor. And then you have your blade guard. It's a plastic blade guard, but it's a nice plastic blade guard. It's got your little rolly wheel. So this is the lock. You pull this trigger to lower the drop saw. It's got a little thing in there. You do that, and then that's your trigger. And your blade guard is pulled by this, and then you have your lock. It's just this big pin, and the cord is clipped back here, by the way, so it slides on the back of your rails. And then your Allen key is stored down here. And if you want to change the brushes, when you get to that point, it's these two screws. We haven't had to change brushes yet. Probably won't have to for a long time, but it's these two screws, and this black piece comes off. This is 18 by 200 millimeter boards. Pine. It's very dry because the weather here has been very dry lately. So we're going to do a couple cuts in this. I'm cutting these boards up for a chicken coop. Making sure I get them in the right spot, because I'm not just cutting up wood for the sake of cutting up wood. I want to make sure it's square. There's a bit of a knot there. So it cuts this stuff really nicely. I was cutting this earlier. This is pressure treated. I think it's 30 by, oh, hold on, 30 by 60s. Let's make a quick cut through this. Cut that pretty well. By the way, this is a pretty new blade. No idea what this is. This is 25 thick. $15mm plywood. At least I think it's 15. Yeah, it's about 14. 23 centimeters across. Here's some 20mm plywood. Just do a cut this quickly. Not sure what this is, but it looks to be pretty hard wood. Some form of redwood. It's 20 centimeters thick decking lumber, so I'd imagine it's pretty dense. Leave out the 40 by 60. Well, this is actually, oh yeah, this is a 40 by 60. So as you can tell, it cuts wood really well. This blade is not brand new. It's done quite a bit of a little bit of cutting already. Quite a bit, little bit. It depends on how much you use your saw. But yeah, it cuts really well. And as you probably noticed, most of the dust does go up the dust collection and come out the back. Sometimes the dust collection does get clogged up if you're cutting really wet wood. So all you have to do is pull it out all the way and run the saw and maybe go like that a bit and it will blow everything out. Or if you have an air gun, you can just blow air up here and all the dust will come out. This is a nice knob, by the way. I forgot to point that out, but that's a nice knob. And also, this slides nicely.